Welcome to the Business Growth Spotlight and another episode. We're so excited to have you joining us today. And this is where we shine the light and speak with business leaders from all over the world who share their insights and expertise so we can all grow together. I'm excited to be talking with my guest today. Her and I have been chatting behind the scenes, and she's like, you're going to just love her. I'm already loving her. I am your
Oh,
host. I am your host, Heidi Schalk, and I am the co-founder of the Spotlight to Scale Accelerator. And if you're new to this podcast, welcome. We're so excited to have you here. We are a strategic visibility company who help businesses scale through different visibility outside the box methods. So if you're new, stick around because we have a gift for you at the end. But right now, I want to kick us off and introduce my special guest, Marika Flatt with PR by the Book. Welcome, Marika, to the podcast.
thank you. So nice to be here. Like I was telling you, Heidi, I've been enjoying listening to episodes. So we're all in this together, right? I mean, it doesn't matter how long we've been in business. We still need to keep learning and growing and hearing from other people who give us good ideas.
Absolutely. And I thank you for being a listener. That means a lot to us. This is a new podcast. We just launched the beginning of this year. So I'm grateful for you taking the time out of your busy day to take a listen. So Marika, can you share with us a little bit about you, your company, and the role that you play within it?
Yeah, so PR by the Book was launched over 22 years ago,
Ooh.
and we work with authors and publishers. Our main role is to help authors find their audience,
Mhm.
and we do that through getting them media opportunities and helping them promote either a book launch or a book that's already out or messaging that's important to them. And so most of our clients are authors, but we do work with some publishing houses. And my role in the company is I am primarily responsible for business development. And I pop in and out of management, but I do have a manager on our team. And of course, as the owner, and I run the company with my husband, there's always ownership projects to be working
Mhm.
on. So those are the three areas that the three sandboxes that I play in.
So what inspired you to launch PR by the Book?
So when I graduated from college, I loved media. I had been in college to I wanted to be a reporter, and so I had a little bit of a journalism background at that point. And I also have always loved books.
Mhm.
And so I kind of landed into a job at a small literary publicity firm in Austin and just loved it. I mean, it was from the get-go the perfect job for me. And it's kind of funny because most people, certainly at that time, had no idea what a book publicist was. And they really thought that I worked at a publishing house. And so I always had to tell people, no, we're a small boutique literary publicity firm. And it was great. It was a sink or swim situation. It was me and the owner, and at the early times, one other person. And she really was at a stage in her career where she wanted to mentor me and grow me and step out of the spotlight. And so it was a great opportunity for me. I stayed there for 7 years. I had some amazing publicity campaigns. And by the time I left, there was no doubt in my mind that I could run my own firm.
Yeah.
And so I left, my husband and I started the business together, and it just started growing from early on. And that was over 22 years ago.
Mhm.
And so obviously there's been a lot of evolution at PR by the Book. But we're still a boutique firm. There's always about 10 of us, and we've just added new services and added new features over the years. But this is a fun space to be in.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about like we want to learn what we're doing, like what's working and what's not working. So let's talk about the mistakes first that companies make when it comes
Yeah.
to PR. So what are the biggest mistakes that you've seen in your years of expertise of that businesses and authors make when trying to get that media attention? Because it's an authority building opportunity. So what are the
Right.
mistakes that they can avoid that you see that they make so often?
So I would say one of the mistakes is business owners, and this is a great topic related to books because so many business owners write books. It's
Mhm.
kind of a calling card for them to build their business. And so we work on a lot of business books and we work with a lot of entrepreneurs and a lot of leaders and managers. And I would say one of the more common mistakes that people make is thinking that top tier media is the be all end all, that they need to start, they expect to start at the top and they expect to get a feature article in the New York Times, or they're like, oh, well, sure, I'm going to get a feature on me in Inc. or Fortune or whatever it is that they're coming to us with their wish list. And that's a fallacy because business owners have to build up that credibility with media. So they need to go and get these opportunities in media that reach their target audience. So I'm not talking about having them, a business author go on a lifestyle show necessarily. They should target the types of media outlets that their audience is listening to, watching, reading. But people think that they can just start at these top tier outlets, and it's just the wrong expectation to go in with because those spots are few and far between. And in this day and age of, so there's three types of publishing now. There's traditional, which is what we all know from ages old, Random House, Simon and Schuster, all of those guys. There's hybrid, and then there's self-publishing. And so we work with all three categories, but depending on what category somebody has used for publishing will depend on where they start, in their media journey sometimes. So I would say that's one of the first things that comes to mind when you ask about mistakes. And then I would say maybe another one is not fully utilizing each and every media opportunity that they get, basically just kind of doing the interview and then they keep going and then they don't really spend the time to utilize that. So, if you had an author on the business growth podcast and they get the link, well, they need to slow down and make sure that either they or their people are fully utilizing that link, sharing it on all their platforms, putting it on their website press page, sending it to their friends. There's a lot of different things that they can do with that link. And so we try to do a good job of educating our clients on these pieces of, wait, take it a step further, get that opportunity, do the interview, and then take it one or two steps further to make sure that you're fully utilizing it.
Yeah, I'm really glad that you said that because I learned a little bit about media over the past couple of years, and one of the biggest things is somebody would get like maybe a client gets shown in Forbes or something like that, and that's great. Or you're on TV, and that's great. Or you get in, you're on a podcast, right? But not leveraging that media is where they lose traction. So they get all excited that they got the exposure, but they're not leveraging that to build their authority online in a big way. And not only that, repurposing it is super important, right? Like a year from now, you could revisit that, 6 months from now. And then I want to talk in a storytelling down the road, but also creating story around that. Like especially with repurposing, like, oh, I remember when this happened to me, and I remember when I spoke about this actually in this when I was talking with XYZ from whatever media or on this podcast. And I love what you're doing. We're not a big podcast. We were honest with you, very transparent. We have a we have a first podcast. This is our newer one. And you didn't say no to it, right?
No,
You're like,
no.
right. So you don't need to, like, you get to say yes because you need to get in front of your people. And whether you're getting in front of 5 or 5,000 or 5 million, turning down things, especially when you're getting started, is a big mistake I think many people make because they're expecting a lot. And I'd rather have 5 people that say yes than 5,000 that say no,
Right.
that don't
Right.
resonate.
And we do teach our authors about that just that they can't just look at the numbers of a podcast because several things. Number one, if a podcast is, let's just say, in a particular niche, so this one is obviously business, oriented, the people who are listening to that podcast are very interested in that topic. And so you're going to get audiences that are more engaged in maybe a smaller podcast that has a niche than you are just a very general podcast that covers every topic under the sun. And also, another thing that we look at is we tell authors, in terms of numbers, it's not just numbers, it's also engagement. So if you're strictly looking at, how many listeners a podcast has, that's only one piece of the pie. They should be looking at their social media platforms and see what kind of engagement they have with listeners and things of that sort. So you have to look at promotion very big picture, 360 degrees, look at it from the top of the roof, looking down, and make sure that you're looking at all of the different facets and not just one part.
Yeah. And I always would tell my clients, if you're starting out on guesting on podcasts, and I think everybody should be guesting on podcasts, like this is a new platform it's still untapped. Like social media is kind of like, we need to have it, but it's very oversaturated. Like there's so much noise out there, where podcasting is still pretty open. It's not going to stay this way, but I'm like, definitely be guesting on podcasts and start off with the smaller ones to kind of figure out what your messaging is, what you want to talk into, get really comfortable with those conversational, especially if you're new to it, because it could be I remember when I started, I never thought 6 years ago I'd be running a podcast with my backstory, and then let alone two. But when guesting, it helps you really get your message, develop your story. Like we were talking a little bit, I touched in, and I want to get into that. But before we do, how you've been doing this for over 20 years? How have you seen PR? How has PR evolved in this digital age? And what are the key strategies for standing out today for, just like what we were talking about?
Yeah. So the first thing that obviously comes to mind is adding in the digital component because, back when I say when I was a baby book publicist, we were smiling and dialing is what we called it. I mean, all the pitches were done on the phone. You would just call a producer, call the next one, call the next one. And there was no digital component to what the strategy was because it didn't exist.
Right.
And so we combine that traditional media outreach. So still what's left of print, radio, still talk radio, adding in podcasts, of course. We combine all of those with the digital side of things as well. So we have a digital department, and those that the people in that department are working on things like our influencer outreach. They're handling our NetGalley account, which is there's people reviewing books in there for digital outlets. They're doing social media content development and scheduling. They're doing consultations for social media. So we have all of these digital pieces over here. And even I always say podcasts are kind of sitting on the fence because they fall under both sides of our business. So we consider podcasts still kind of more on the publicity and like traditional side of things, even though they are an online type of outlet. The podcast pitching doesn't fall under our digital team. But, it's very important to have all of these digital pieces into a publicity campaign. I always tell authors, you don't have to have every piece of that pie, but let's talk about, for your particular situation, what are the important pieces? Yeah. And so we feel like as business athletes, which I like to think of us as business athletes after all of these years, that one of the things that we've done well is continue to innovate in our service offerings and continue to pay attention to what sells books and what helps authors build their brands. And so, constantly modifying what we're doing or how we're pitching or what we're pitching. All of those pieces are very important to kind of staying ahead of those curves and making sure that we're doing what we need to do in 2025 and that we're not just doing what we did in 2020,
Exactly. Evolving. Yeah.
Evolving. Yes.
So let's talk. I brought in storytelling, and there I know I just know from working with clients and just working on their helping them with content.
Mhm.
Storytelling is really important as far as getting, allowing people to be able to connect with you in that way. So what role does storytelling play in successful PR campaigns?
Oh, it's so important. I love to talk to our authors about the storytelling component because I tell everybody, everybody loves to listen to a good story, and what I tell people is if you're doing a podcast interview or a talk radio interview, and imagine that listener sitting in their car, maybe they're commuting to work, and they're listening to the stories that you're telling, and they're so engaged that when they pull up into the parking lot of their office, they're going to sit in their car to finish listening to your interview because they're so enthralled in the stories that you're telling. And we can give information without telling stories. Of course, we can give data and we can give facts and we can talk about studies and different things, but if you are able to couch that into a story,
Mhm.
it's so much more interesting to the listener. And so with our authors for PR by the book, we like to just talk them through, what are some of the stories we read in your book that really jumped out at us, I was just listening to a podcast interview yesterday for one of our authors, and I was listening to the story that she told about her son, and I just flashed back to the very first conversation I had with her before she even started the publicity campaign, and I started tearing up. And that doesn't happen to me very often. And I immediately, when I finished listening to the podcast, um, I was just out walking, listening to it. I came back to my office and I immediately emailed her and told her how amazing the podcast was, all the things that she did right, and that those stories that she was telling about her son just really touched my heart. And, so I love to hear our authors telling those stories and then call it out to them and say, I was listening and it moved me. And I hear stories all the time, and I've already read your book. I read your book cover to cover, and it still really touched me. So if we are first starting to work with an author and we're just beginning to talk about what we think the media will be interested in with the author, we will sometimes make note of stories that we read in their book and say, this story that you talked about when your father was battling alcoholism and how that affected you, bring that out and let people connect with you on that story. And so yeah, it's vitally important. And I think none of us do it enough. I mean, I think we all forget to tell stories, whether we're reaching out to get clients or we're, in terms of like telling our own story, as business leaders, do
Yeah.
we tell our own story enough? And the answer is probably not. And so I think it's a great reminder for all of us, no matter where we are in business or what business we're in, that we all came to this point on this road. And so we have a journey behind us that
Hmm.
brought us here.
Yeah.
So if we can tell that story, it could inspire someone. It could, I always say, with media, you as a guest, you're there to inspire, entertain, educate, all of these things, no matter what your book is about, that's the purpose that you serve in the interview for the audience.
Absolutely. People want to know, like they want answers to a solution to a problem they have. They want the solution, but they
Mhm.
also want to know more about you and how, whether you're the one that overcame it too, or you've created the system or product or service to help them do that. They want to
Mhm.
hear your journey along the way in some way. And
Yeah.
absolutely, storytelling it connects. And I think that there's probably a lot of business leaders that just don't, maybe they don't know where that line is that they
Mhm.
can start sharing but not oversharing. So I think
Mhm.
that's maybe somewhere in the in the business world that still there's a lot of confusion there. And I know
Mm.
for me, I don't share my story enough. I did for a while, and I think I've stopped sharing it for a while. So thank you for the reminder that we get to
Yeah.
go out there and be a little vulnerable and let people know we're human, right? We're not.
Right.
Yeah.
Because you were talking earlier, you said we've all made mistakes.
Mm,
So why don't we tell those stories too and share those mistakes? And I love that word that you just used, vulnerable, because it could help someone else avoid making the same mistake, and it could also just give a light bulb moment
mm,
to as they're listening to the story, that maybe isn't exactly on track with the mistake that you made, but it could just spark that idea in their head while they're listening. I don't know if that happens to you, but that happens to me all the time when I'm listening to podcasts. If I go out on a walk and listen to a podcast, I use it's called a spy belt, and it's runners use this,
mm.
and it has little pockets in it. And so I have my phone in one side, and in the other side I have a piece of paper and a pen,
Ah,
because I'm always thinking of ideas or things or something that something will be said in the podcast, and it'll make me think of a certain thing, and I'll write myself a note about it, because I need to take action on it or remember it. And so we just don't know what will hit with an audience.
exactly. Exactly. So I want to talk about technology because we're not going to get away from it. And AI is just evolving and growing. So I definitely want to
Mhm.
bring this into the conversation.
Mhm.
How are you seeing, Marika, AI transforming public relations, and what tools are you using to enhance media outreach?
So we did a PR by the Book team retreat last fall, and one of our workshops that was given by our director of publicity was on utilizing AI. And he had done a ton of research on this and basically put our team through a training utilizing Perplexity as
Okay.
an AI tool. And so we talked about things that we should use it for or shouldn't use it for.
Mm,
And in turn, we create a lot of press materials. So the names of the press materials that we use, we have what we call an experts page that lives online. We have a press pack that is mailed with review copies. We have pitches that go out every day, for different things. So a pitch for a business podcast is going to be different than a pitch to a men's magazine, for an author, for instance. And so we're very careful with how we use AI in terms of what we're writing. And sometimes it's just a starter point. Maybe it's a starter for a pitch on a certain topic. And then we'll workshop it together as a team. And so I think that's important. I was just talking to an author this morning who's a potential client. We're going to put together a proposal for him. And he said that he had used AI to create some press materials for his book. And he said, I don't know what you're going to think about them, but I'm happy to share them, so you can see what I've done. And I said, if you decide that you're going to work with us, we absolutely would love to see that. Don't get your feelings hurt if we don't use it, but it's helpful to see any materials that an author has when they come to us. And then we can tweak as needed. Um, the old-fashioned two-page press release is a thing of the past. Um, nobody's going to read all of that information. And
right.
so we like to be very concise, very compact, and make sure that what we're saying in those few words is compelling to the media outlet. So, yeah, there's definitely a craft to it. Our senior publicity team has an amazing breadth of experience.
Mm,
We have four publicists, plus an extra one that we have worked with for over 5 years now. And they all have over 20 years of experience. And that doesn't count me. I'm not counting myself in that category, even though I do have that amount of experience. But it's amazing to have that level of experience on a publicity team, because it tends to be kind of a youthful role within publishing houses.
Mm.
People get burnt out working in publishing houses in their publicity departments because they're working on like 30 books a season. So we combine that experience with our digital team, which they're all fresh to market and they know more about the digital side than I do, which I love. They, as a business owner, one of the smartest things you can do is hire someone who knows more than you
Exactly.
about a category. And so I love that because we've got the fresh young minds on the digital side and the experience on the publicity side. And it's like the best of both worlds.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that you have all this experience, and that's amazing. And that you also brought up keeping it concise because a lot of people can go overboard thinking, oh, they want more information and they're writing these long pitches or there's
Mhm.
creating these, huge media kits. And it's like,
Yeah.
no, that's actually probably going to get you moved past quicker get viewed quicker, right?
Mhm.
Because our attention spans are going down and people just don't
Yeah,
have the time. So you really got to
absolutely.
create that sense of
Absolutely.
like that hook, right? Which we would
Mhm.
call in messaging, that
Mhm.
hook in your pitch to get them to look at it.
Yes.
So I would like to switch gears a little bit and then come back to the PR because I have a couple, at least one or two more questions for you. But when it comes to your journey, love to tap into your journey, a little bit about your story and learn more about
Yeah.
that. What is some things you've built this business? It's been over 20 years. You've been in the industry over 20 years. What is what have been some challenges that you've seen in your growth and how did you
Mhm.
overcome them?
So 3.5 years ago, we wisened up and started working with a group called Action Coach, which is a nationwide group, but they have a local um, branch here where we are in Austin. And that was an amazing turning point for PR by the Book because it was like my husband and I had taken this business as far as we could take it on our own. We knew that we had done all that we could do to get PR by the Book where we wanted it to be. And so I am a huge advocate of working with a business coach, probably early on than we did. You don't have to wait until you've been in business 18 or 19 years. And, that has really helped us uncover blind spots that we didn't even realize we had. It's helped us scale our business. It's helped us grow our leaders in our business. As a business owner, a lot of times you wear every hat. You might start and you're doing all the things. And for my husband and I, that was definitely the case early on. I mean, we hired on contractors from the very beginning in the early days, 2002. But as we built our full-time team, we were still doing a lot of the things and holding on to a lot of the things. And, I would say that that's probably a mistake that we made for so many years
Mhm.
that it was a little bit of a control issue. For years, I held the business development under my own hat, saying nobody can do it like I can do it. This is the lifeblood of our business. If it doesn't get done the right way, then we're all going to suffer. And that just wasn't the right way to think. And so I took baby steps. I mean, my first baby step was to bring on somebody that helped in the admin side of what I was doing. So that was the first step. And I've had several steps since then. But our director of publicity, when he came to PR by the Book, he first applied for a sales role. And when I looked at his resume, I told our leadership team, oh my gosh, like he's perfect for director of publicity. I mean, he's been in book publicity for 20 plus years. But because he was already confident in working on the business development side, which I knew because that's what he applied for, as soon as he was hired, I started training him on both sides of the business, the management and leadership side of running the publicity team, but also helping with business development because I was doing every meeting, every call, every Zoom, finalizing every proposal. And that has been a game changer. And at some point, what we're working on through with Action Coach is to get me out of the day to day completely so that I can just spend my time on the ownership issues, which I should not say just. I mean, there's always a massive to-do list of just the ownership projects, right? Because there's always things to be done or to change or to modify or to, put something through a SWOT analysis. And, I would say it took us a long time to learn that that was a mistake, that we weren't hiring the right people for the right roles to take work off of our plate so that we could spend more time growing the business. So that's definitely one thing. And I have very much evolved as a manager over the years. I made a ton of mistakes at the company I was at before because I was a 20-something-year-old who was thrown into managing an entire team. And, the owner was just at the point where she was just ready to step out of the day to day. And I'm so thankful to her. She's a dear friend to this day. But I didn't know what I was doing, you know? I made so many mistakes, to the degree that as I became more of an adult and learned and continued my education in this category, I even went back to some of those people later and apologized
Wow.
for not being the leader that they needed at that
Mhm.
time. So, yeah, I mean, we certainly don't have it all figured out early on in our careers, and I still make mistakes, I mean, we all do. I mean, no one's perfect. And especially as business leaders and owners, when we're spinning 7 plates at the same time, sometimes we don't feel like we can slow down and spend that amount of time that that team member maybe needs from us, or respond as thoughtfully to an email. I call it email jujitsu, and I'm just, like on the computer, like that meme of that little cat or
Trying to
whatever that everybody's seen.
respond as quick as
Yeah.
possible and clean that inbox up, Yeah,
Yes.
totally get
Yes.
it.
Yes. And so on the DISC profile, if you're familiar with that personality test, I know there's a million of them, but we utilize DISC, and it's, the D is more direct personality. The I is more, I want to influence others. And then there's S and C. I'm not S and C at all. I'm D and I all the way. And so, which is funny because my husband's S and C.
Mhm.
So he's very steady. He's very analytical. He will just look at every side of everything before taking a step. And I'm kind of pedal to the metal. So I'm like, I'm gonna look at it. I'll, as an owner, I definitely respect the process of digging into an issue if it comes up and doing my research on that and not just shooting from the hip. I've definitely learned that over the years. But once I do my research and have those conversations and, figure out what's going on in the situation, I'm ready to like handle it and move on. And it takes all types. I mean, in our, with our 10-person team, we look at where all 10 people fall. Everybody has to take the disc when they sign on, or when they start. And it's fun and helpful. And then it's helpful to see that it takes all types within a team. It would be horrible if everybody was the same
Yeah,
personality
no, that
profile.
it wouldn't work. It wouldn't work.
No.
And that's interesting that you said that your husband and you are opposites, because that's
Mhm.
most likely why it works.
Right.
I know my business partner, her and I are different. I'm more of the creative and the visionary. She's more of the things that bother her don't bother me. I'm like,
Right.
okay, but we need that.
Yep.
We need both. And
Right.
'cause business wouldn't thrive if it just relied on me. And it
Yeah.
would, and she needs that. She needs more of that me and me too to kind of like go, you can let that go. It's not gonna,
Mhm.
at the end of the day, like let's not harp on this for whatever. So
Right.
we balance each other out great, and it sounds like you have the
Absolutely.
same there. And I think it's just, like you said, for your team, it's important that you understand who you're about your employees and your team and how they thrive, right?
Yes.
how they get to be communicated to, what type of communication best works for them so that
Uh-huh.
you can make them most effective and most productive and
Yep.
create that internal, really magical culture.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, when you get the report back after somebody takes a disc, it's way too many pages. Speaking of being able to read
You're
that,
not analytical. You're not the
no,
analytical.
no. I'm like, give
I'm
me
the
the
same way.
highlight.
I'm like, no, I can't read all this.
I'm going to skip to the parts that I feel like are the cliff notes and the most
Yeah.
important. But one of the things in there is this is how you can best communicate with this employee. Or don't ever do these things with this employee, and so it's super helpful when you're learning how to communicate with a team, and whether that's me as an owner communicating with a publicist, or a publicist communicating with our digital coordinator, or our director of operations communicating with an assistant publicist.
Mhm.
It's all important.
Right.
It's all so important.
Yeah. Absolutely. So, let's talk about client acquisition because you obviously needed to figure out how to get in front of your people, right? Revenue keeps the doors
Mhm.
open. So
Mhm.
how do you do it now? I'm sure things have changed and evolved over the last 22 years. So
Yeah.
how are the ways that you're getting in front of, who is your ideal client, first of all, for
Mhm.
our listeners going, I might need to want to talk to them. Who's your
Yeah.
ideal client? Who do you work with? And how do you, marketing wise, visibility wise, how are you staying in front of them? Are there
Mhm.
certain strategies that are working better than others this year for you that,
Mhm.
than it has in the past?
Yeah, that's a really interesting topic because for many, many, many years, our main source of business was referrals.
Mm,
And we had no referral program. We didn't offer anything to them. And I just felt strongly that it was important to make all of that very pure. Like I wanted people sending authors and publishers to us because they trusted the work that we did. They knew our reputation, they knew we work hard. And in the past several years, we folded in other marketing into that. Not to say that we didn't ever do this, but I do go and speak at conferences and invest that time. And we're usually paying for travel expenses to go do that. And I'll be on podcasts like this. We really encourage our authors to think about who they know that we would be a good fit for, because they are intimately tied into our services and what we deliver. And so, we we ask them those questions. We ask for when we finish out a campaign and somebody sends us a nice email, I always go back to them and say, can we use this one quote here on our social media and our website? And now we've just started asking them to create a video for us because we know video is important as well.
mm,
And so, yeah, we've been, trying out new things for sure, but definitely. Oh, and we started a newsletter last year that has been really amazing. Our director of operations handles that, and it's beautiful and it's packed with wonderful information that's very value add. And so I think that's been a helpful tool as well. And, of course, we spend a lot of time on our socials. Our digital team spends a lot of time on social media content. And so all of those things combined are what we utilize. But still, we get the most business from referrals.
yeah, absolutely. So what's your biggest goal for 2025, Marika, for your company?
Yeah, so for the company, we have goals around new strategic partnerships that we would like to develop, where we're talking to a lot of people in the industry that could be ongoing partners of ours, where, they don't do what we don't do what they do, but they need our publicity services on a regular basis. So whether that's a hybrid publisher, or a company that helps authors self-publish, or a term that we use called book shepherds, um, whoever, like it could be a variety of different things, but those are we're spending quite a bit of time this year developing those strategic partnerships.
Mm.
And the result of that will be ongoing leads that are somewhat vetted and that will come in more consistently.
So
Yeah.
if you, for 2025, with your goal of creating those more strategic partnerships, what if we could give you a magic wand and you could wave it and then go poof over one issue that you're having right now that might hold you back from creating that, what would that be?
I would say that we need to, I feel like we live in our bubble a little bit, and we know who we've worked with and we know those people, but it's only a very small portion of the publishing industry.
Mm.
And so I think we need to be introduced to new people, new players on the scene. There's a lot of turnover in publishing. So we handled 3 books a season for a mid-sized publisher for years.
Mm.
And their publicity director just went to a different publishing company. And so we lost that ongoing campaign
Mm.
because of turnover,
Right.
basically. They actually didn't replace her in that position. So, I think it's about just getting in front of new people in the publishing industry because we stand behind what we deliver. We work hard. We know that we get our clients the media that they're looking for. We work overtime to do it. So our ethics are very strong and our track record is very strong. So it's just, I guess, getting more visible within the community of people that we haven't been in front of before.
Yeah, absolutely. So my final, oh no, I have two more questions for you actually. My one question is, so what if we could come back in a year, as I mentioned, as a newer podcast, if we could come back, and thank you again for being yes.
Yeah.
If we could go back in a year and revisit this conversation, what does success look for you, like for you,
Hmm.
PR by the book?
Yeah. So success for me would be that I finally got out of the day to day being dependent on me,
Mm.
and that I could spend all of that time on the things that I wanted to improve or change or innovate
Yeah.
for PR by the book. That would definitely be a real touch point of success.
Yeah, no, I hear you. As a business owner, you want to be able to kind of release some things.
Mhm.
And, we always want it quicker than sometimes we're able to do it. But it's one
Right.
of the goals is just like, how do I take a step back? Right.
Right.
Um,
Right.
so for my final question is for entrepreneurs just starting out, what's the number one PR strategy they should focus on first?
I would say becoming a thought leader is so important in your space. So whether that is writing articles that you can contribute to, and I'll say primarily digital outlets because they're the ones that are most accessible.
Mm.
Um, there's just not much print media out there anymore. And so, getting those articles written as a thought leader within your space is important. Spending time doing podcasts like this is also a recommendation that I would have. And not trying to be all things to all people and being okay with that, knowing who your niche is and really being able to focus on that. We've done campaigns before that aren't book related, but it's not it's not a big part of our business, and it's kind of on a case by case basis. So we do stay within our niche for sure and have always done that. And also, um well, this would take us down a whole nother rabbit hole. I probably shouldn't even start that conversation. It's for the next interview.
Mm.
But I think in terms of your services, also staying true to, and I'll give you an example. So there's been twice in our history that we tried to incorporate a speakers bureau into what we do
Mm.
because we have so many authors and clients that wanted to develop a speaking career, but it's a whole different target. It's
Yeah.
event planners. It's not media. And so anyway, chalk that up as another mistake in that earlier conversation.
And you make a good point there because it is pitching. It's still in the game of pitching, right? You're
Mhm,
pitching media, you're pitching
mhm,
event planners, or but it definitely it's a different approach, I
mhm,
think, than it
mhm,
is with doing both. Because I've done both for myself, and it's
mhm.
definitely a different approach than it is with media versus event planners, for sure.
Right.
Yeah,
And you know, we know the media landscape so well, and we are so connected, and we have so many relationships built.
yeah,
But we don't have any relationships with event planners, you know? I mean, that's just not anything we've spent time on. So it's a whole different type of person
yeah,
that we would be pitching. And we don't even have those databases, you know?
yeah.
So
Yeah, true. Well, thank you so much, Marika, for all of your amazing information and your time today. How can our listeners reach out to you and connect with you?
so we're at prbythebook.com. That is our main website. You can fill out a form there, and the email goes to info@prbythebook.com. And we also have another platform for authors that they might check out. It's called author2influencer.com. And that is more of a DIY program that we developed 5 years ago to help people very low cost. And so people who can't afford to hire a publicist to do it for them, that's a place where they can go. And then on socials, we're PR by the book on all social platforms. So easy to
Perfect.
find.
Perfect. Well, make sure you go to prbythebook.com. What is the other website again? Author
Author2influencer.com.
to, is it TO influencer, not
Mhm,
the number two?
mhm.
Okay,
Right.
author2influencer.com, right?
Mhm.
Perfect. So we'll have and also check out all the social media, connect with them, follow them, reach out to them, DM them. Marika, you can tell she's an amazing, incredible, lovely lady. So she'll definitely like be happy to support you and her team. So definitely go to prbythebook.com, go grab that form and go check out what they have with to offer you and how they can serve you. Marika, is there anything I know I've gone over on my time with you? This has been such a good conversation. I
Yeah.
apologize, but it's been so good.
Yeah.
So how can you, what was I going to ask you? I just lost my train of thought. Is there anything that I didn't get to ask you or touch on that you want to share before we wrap up?
I would just say that just about anybody can use publicity because the market is so crowded now. And I always tell authors, if you're not doing publicity for your book, it's sitting on the proverbial shelf. And look at Amazon. I mean, there's millions of books.
Mm,
And so unless you're spending the time and attention and investing in that for you or your business, then there's just so much noise.
yeah.
People, it's hard to find you. So I guess that would be my parting words.
It's great advice because I always tell everybody, I'm like, if you're waiting to do PR or they're like, when should I start PR? I'm like, yesterday.
Mhm.
Right? You don't want to
Right.
wait till the book comes out. Like by
Mhm.
then you've missed a lot of traction that you could have created. So
Right.
definitely get with Marika and her team. Let them support you. Let them help you get the word out. You don't need the book. If you're working on one and you're listening, reach
Mhm.
out to them. Don't wait for the
Yeah.
book to be ready before
Yeah.
you can be getting on podcasts, you can be getting on
Mhm.
radio, you can be getting on TV, you can be doing, other media outlets that you need to be getting and sharing what's coming and creating that buzz.
Right.
If you're listening to, or if you're watching Marika and I on YouTube, please feel free to hit that subscribe button if you love the information. It's been a lot of gold nuggets here today, so I know you've loved it. Please hit that subscribe button so you get to hear from more of our amazing guests, and it also helps us get the word out to more people. If you're listening to us on your favorite platform like Amazon, podcast platform that Marika mentioned, or Apple or Spotify, you can leave us a 5-star review. Hopefully, it's 5 stars. Go ahead and hit that button and also leave us a review and leave a message for Marika. Reach out to her, let her know you heard her here. And
Mhm.
Marika, I'm so grateful for your time. Thank you so much.
Oh, it was fun. Real fun to be here. Thank you, Heidi.
Thank you. If and for those of you listening, thank you so much for listening to Marika and I today. If you're looking to grow your visibility strategically by getting in front of more clients and you just haven't figured out why and you're like doing all the things, go ahead and grab our Spotlight to Scale blueprint, you can go to spotlighttoscale.com/blueprint and grab that. It's free and it'll share with you some great ways of getting out there. Again, go to prbythebook.com, go visit Marika, and we'll see you on the next episode of the Business Growth Spotlight.